Code monkey get up, get coffee. Code monkey go to job. Code monkey have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say code monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do code monkey think? Code monkey think maybe manager wanna write login page himself. Code monkey not say it out loud. Code monkey not crazy, just proud. Code monkey like Fritos. Code monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code monkey very simple man. Big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code monkey like you. Code monkey like you.
What's new, Dino Dudes? It's me, the Media Raptor, and welcome back to another episode of Reaction and Review with the Media Raptor. The lighting's getting weird because the sun's going down, so I'm gonna have to play with that a little bit. Anyhow, Dino Dudes, tonight we're taking a look at a 2000 movie. That movie, Pokémon the Movie 2000. So, yeah, if you watched my video on Pokémon the first movie, you'll know I didn't think much of it. I didn't hate it, but I certainly didn't enjoy it. To me, it was just sort of a movie more than anything. This movie I have seen roughly 13 years ago. I remember absolutely nothing from it aside from an Ancient Mew trading card being a plot point. I remember that because I remember the story of when I watched it more than the actual movie. What happened was I rented it from the library. Yeah, that should tell you how long ago this was. And it was a VHS tape back then. And it must have been pretty new, but it's weird because I think it would have been like 2000 and... Sorry, my dog, Scamp, is very confused by this blanket I put up here. Come on under. Forgive her. Scamp is not the smartest dog on the block, but she is a good girl. You guys want to say hi to Scamp real quick? Hang on, come here. Hi. Hello. Sorry. And I remember opening the VHS case and there being an Ancient Mew card in there. If that came with the movie or was someone else's and they left it in there by accident, I don't know, and I don't really care. That card is long gone, but it was cool to have for a bit. Anyhow, really, I'm just hoping it's a bit better than the first one because the first movie wasn't bad, but it wasn't very entertaining. It was just sort of what it was supposed to be, a ploy to sell more Pokemon cards and stuff. And if you were a fan of the show and all that, you probably would get some enjoyment out of it, but I didn't get much enjoyment out of it. So anyhow, I've talked long enough, let's watch the movie. So let's all kick back, relax, and check out Pokémon the Movie 2000. Kind of an odd title. That might be the most 90s rap song I've ever heard. And honestly, I kind of liked it. This movie is off to a far better start than the first one. Like, that rap song was so 90s cheese that it was honestly really lovable. So, this movie's really good.
It seems there's been a shift in the balance of power.
So far, this movie is really good. It's not like, like world-changing or anything, but it's very entertaining and very well written. The plot's very straightforward and very simple so far. It seems like they're trying to utilize a lot more characters and a lot more lore, I guess? It's just all around a much better movie. Look, I know I haven't said a whole lot during this movie, and it's honestly because the movie's just good. It's not phenomenal, it's not like a 4-star movie, but it's certainly very entertaining. It's got a good plot so far. Yeah, it's just a fun movie. For somebody who had enough money to build a giant floating fortress and even containment units strong enough to hold Moltres and Zapdos, to, at the time of this movie, two of the most legendary and powerful Pokemon in existence, he sure didn't, spend a lot of money trying to make them secure. Also, my nose is bleeding for some reason. Huh, weird. Yeah, but this guy... you'd think if you're trying to hold two of them, like trying to hold the most powerful Pokemon in existence, you'd have a stronger containment unit, but... Hey, what do I know? I have a whole bunch of questions. First of all, Lugia can talk. That's cool. I completely forgot about that. Second, when did this prophecy kind of happen? Like, I'm willing to accept, okay, fine, a prophecy, a chosen one. It's cliched, but this is a kid's movie. So, I'm just gonna let that slide. When was this prophecy written? Like, it just sort of seems to have just sort of come out of nowhere. Third, this ritual sort of thing that they're doing that Ash set on in the first place to begin with, they say they do it every year. They've been doing it for years. Does that mean that these events and that the world gets nearly destroyed every single year?
We'll do whatever it takes to get that third treasure.
Fourth,
But what if I mess up?
there was a lot more emotional investment in this movie. I'm actually feeling a lot more emotion than I did from the first movie.
Yeah, you're right. I can do it. I'm the chosen one.
It's a lot better.
Right now, I feel more like...
So, I'll be honest here, if I was a kid, I think I would absolutely adore this movie. I do enjoy it as it is, and again, the lighting's kind of messed up, so sorry if my face seems kind of weird. It's a good movie on its own, but I think as a kid I would absolutely adore this movie if I watched it more than once as a kid. But yeah, I've gotta be honest, this is just a well-made movie. Good action, good plot, some actually surprisingly emotional moments, good humor. Bit curious as to how it's gonna end because there's still like 23 minutes left, but yeah. I don't know what else really to say. I'm sorry I haven't said much this whole review, but it's just been a good movie. There hasn't been much to react to or to really say. Alright, that was Pokémon the Movie 2000. That was kind of what I was hoping for with Pokémon the first movie. 1 second. Alright, so Pokémon the Movie 2000. If you didn't see my review of Pokémon the first movie, I complained that it didn't really seem like much of a movie, just several episodes strung together, with characters making idiotic decisions and no real emotional investment into these characters because you weren't really given much reason to care. Pokémon the Movie 2000 decides, hey, let's do all that stuff. Not only do we have a plot that is fit for a movie, in fact, could even be fit for a series finale, the characters are much more developed with much more personality and depth, they're given more screen time, and these characters are not idiots. Again, yes, it is Ash, Misty, but this guy named Tracy, not Brock. I haven't seen much of Gotta Catch 'Em All, so maybe he was like another guy who showed up at one point. Regardless, he's a likable character, and doesn't have much screen time, but when he is there, he's not annoying, certainly. But yeah, the plot is pretty simple, but also pretty interesting. It turns out that Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno are technically in this constant balance, and should something happen to one of them, the other ones kind of go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and kind of go, well, like I said, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And all the while, Lugia's sort of doing his own thing in underground, and I don't really want to spoil it, because I would recommend you watch it. Unlike Pokemon the first movie, where they tried to have the whole, oh yeah, Pokemon, like, we shouldn't fight, blah blah blah, which, admittedly, when I was thinking about it, I think I may have been a bit too harsh on, as the message of that was supposed to be, Pokemon choose to fight, it's not that we force them to fight. The movie could have been far, far clearer about that, but okay, fine, maybe I was a bit too harsh on that, I will admit that. But this one just straight up went, okay, we got a pretty simple story. Yeah, it is kind of cliched with the whole chosen one prophecy that comes out of nowhere, and it is kind of strange how it turns out that Ash is the chosen one for a festival celebration, and then it turns out, oh wait, he actually is the chosen one from the prophecy. Kind of seems very much like plot convenience, but hey, it is what it is. So something that works in this movie that works a lot better than the last movie, aside from the story being very straightforward, simple to follow, but having far higher stakes as the actual world is literally threatened this time. Mewtwo said he wanted to kill all humans and stuff, but this time we actually see that damage is already being done when even the smallest things get out of balance. So not only do we have more stakes, like plot-wise, that actually show how the world is being affected, the emotional stakes are far, far better. Because this time, we see Ash's struggle to make good choices, we see him trying to come to terms with who he is, we even see his mom and the actual fear she goes through knowing he could die. The characters struggle, the characters aren't just sort of casually breezing through these plot structures going, oh yeah, nothing can happen to us because we're the main characters. They're put in danger, and at one point, of all characters, Team Rocket nearly dies. Quite surprisingly, they even make reference to the fact that they believe they're going to let themselves die to save Ash. So they quite bluntly say, rather than say goodbye, let's just say, we're going to die. Which kind of surprised me that this movie would be willing to be that blunt with potential character deaths. Now, of course, they wouldn't kill them off. That would not make sense considering the fact that they're still around years and years later. But I do appreciate the fact that the movie was at least willing to be a little bit more blunt with its message. And the whole idea of one person can make a difference, which is sort of the moral of this story, admittedly, it's a team of people can make a difference, but I do get what they were going for, and the message is certainly not lost. And it's certainly not a bad message, and it's certainly not a convoluted one either. There also is a lot of really good humor in this movie. There's multiple fourth wall jokes that did make me laugh out loud. One concerning both the fact that this is a theatrically released film and that people would be watching it on video, and even a joke about how the audience has been seeing everything that happens. Team Rocket in the last movie, I never really mentioned them because it seemed like they were just there. They had one funny moment when they were dressed up like Vikings, and that sounds kind of weird, you need to watch the first movie for that to make sense. Here they were given much more to do, and like I said, not only do they have some actually pretty funny moments, they actually have a pretty, well, like I mentioned, a moment where it looks like they're willing to let themselves die. It's interesting character growth, especially because, well, these characters haven't really changed in almost 20 years. It is interesting to see that the movie was willing to try and be a bit more out there with it. Now, this isn't to say the writing is perfect. There are a number of questions I had, such as, if this Chosen One or Legendary Festival happens every year, does this mean every year Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno get disbalanced? I know I mentioned this during the reaction part, but I do want to mention it now. They do make it kind of clear that this festival and this whole, like, hey, go get these 3 crystals sort of thing happens every year. So what happens in the previous years? Did the Legendaries just kind of decide, yeah, you know, there is no balance, but I can't be bothered to go cause chaos because, hey, Game of Thrones is on, man. Just let me watch this. I swear, if they kill Jon Snow, I'm gonna be mad. Or maybe it's because the bad guy in this movie, who I don't know if he even had a name, captured them, which then kind of left their islands open for them to take over. Speaking of said bad guy, I really feel like there was a really good potential for this character, but sadly he wasn't used that much. He didn't get much screen time, but he certainly had an interesting idea. That with some trainers or some people, they look at Pokemon, they want to like train them to fight. Excuse me. He wants to capture them, not to fight them, but to collect them. That certainly is a weird idea, and he keeps talking about my destiny will be fulfilled when he captures Lugia, but I kind of wonder if he understood what he was doing because they made it quite clear that if that ever happened, the world would essentially be destroyed. So, at the same time though, I'm willing to let that slide because this is a kids movie. This is not a movie meant for adults, this is very much a kids movie. And kids aren't going to question it that much. He's very much a character who's there because he's the bad guy, because there needs to be a clear cut, this is the bad guy, and they didn't want to try and have a whole like existential nihilistic question of why do we exist like they did in the first movie, which I do admit was kind of interesting to watch. Regardless, something else, so the stakes are better, the emotional beats are better, the characters are better, the plot is better. Everything about Pokemon the Movie 2000 is a great step up from Pokemon the first movie. So not only is the writing better, One moment. Don't scratch. Not only is the writing better, but like I mentioned with the first movie, the animation is far better. This time, things are far more colored in, better detailed. It still very much is 90s animation, and Pokemon certainly does look better today. Even the later movies look far better than this. But for what it is, for 90s animation, it does actually seem like they took the time to try and go, this animation, we should make it look like a movie, not just TV episodes. And looking at it today, it does admittedly look like TV episodes, but I could see that back in the early 2000s, or 2000 itself, this would look like a theatrical film. On top of that, the acting is much better. I mentioned in the first movie that Pikachu's voice actor, or voice actress, I'm not sure who played Pikachu, was really good at getting these emotional moments across when Pikachu seemed either terrified, stressed, or just upset. Scamp is now sniffing my foot for some reason. Ooh, that good Scampy. You're a good girl. The whole cast this time gets their emotional beats down. The acting across the entire board is just great. The only actor I think didn't work, and I think it works but it also didn't work, is whoever played Lugia. Because with Lugia, he has a very calm, very collected voice. Despite being the guardian of the sea, he speaks very calmly. There's no real sense of urgency or threat around him. And I understand that is done, to make him seem like he is above this. He is the guardian, the one who is the protector, not the fighter. He is smart enough to know he doesn't need to fight. Scamped eating back there if you're hearing that. My thing is, while the voice certainly does work, and it is a very nice voice to listen to, it's actually kind of a calming voice, I feel like it doesn't emote enough for certain scenes. But granted, Lugia doesn't have that many lines, so it's they kind of cancel each other out. Regardless, all the other actors are great. Veronica Taylor is great as Ash, everyone else does a great job. Yeah, the music is far better this time. I mentioned this at the beginning, there is a Pokemon rap, which is the most 90s thing I have ever heard, and it is stupidly cheesy and I absolutely adore it. It's not like a rap version of the Pokemon theme, despite the fact that I really want to hear that now that I've said that out loud. It's just a Pokemon rap. And yeah, I think if I was a kid I would adore it. It's still fun to listen to today. So yeah, pretty much everything in Pokemon 2000 was a vast improvement over Pokemon the first movie. I can wholeheartedly recommend Pokemon 2000 the movie. If you're a kid, you're gonna adore this. I think if I had watched this more times as a kid, if I actually owned a copy of it as a kid, this would be like one of my childhood movies. I would absolutely adore this to this very day. But since this is like the first time I've watched it in over a decade, it's still quite good. It's not perfect, it's got plenty of flaws, quite noticeably, but not nearly as many as the first movie. With the first movie, which I could sit through and go, yeah, it was okay, this one I can sit through and go, that was really good. It was entertaining, fun, everything I could hope for. So if you have kids, I can recommend both these movies. I can recommend 2000 much more. But yeah, if you are a fan of Pokemon and you haven't seen these movies, I'd say check them out. I'm giving Pokemon 2000 the movie a solid 3 Raptor claws out of 4. It's not perfect. In fact, very few movies are, but it still has enough improvements, emotional beats, humor, and good action. The Pokemon fights this time, despite the fact that there actually are very few Pokemon battles. In fact, I don't think there was a single Pokemon battle the entire movie. When they do fight, with Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, and even Lugia all fighting each other, it certainly is entertaining, and it very much is a spectacle. They went out of their way to try and make it look as big as possible. So, really, I hope that Pokemon the movie, Pokemon 3, I'm not going to call it Pokemon the movie 3, I really hope that this one continues the trend of building on quality and is ultimately the best of the 3, because I love Entei. I'll be honest, I'm a grass trainer, always have been, always will be, but Entei is one of my favorite legendaries because he looks so cool. And just having read the back of this VHS case, by the way, I hate clamshell VHS cases. They're really hard to stack and annoying to keep on a shelf, and yeah, it's just my personal choice. The back actually seems like it has a much more well thought out plot. A very interesting plot that I can't wait to see. So ultimately, I greatly enjoyed Pokemon 2000. Maybe it is because I have good memories of it from when I was a kid, but honestly, I don't think so. I think it was just a well-made movie. So with that being said, until next time, this has been the Media Raptor saying keep cool, and I will see all you dino dudes around. Later.